What drove you to coming to work to Mercy College, and was Hispanic servingness at all in the equation?
It was definitely for me. I did not go to an HSI, so I felt very isolated throughout my courses, coming from parents who had had some college but not in the US and not knowing how to navigate going to college in the US. I really wanted to be that person for my students. And so to me, it was really important to work somewhere where there was a lot of Hispanic students. And then I ran across the job at Mercy, found that it was an HSI, and I thought that was a fantastic place for me to fit in and be there.
It's great to hear. Does it resonate with any of you?
Well, for me, it was was attractive from one side, so it's something that I thought that I could contribute to, and also I thought that would be an advantage for my application. So that since I have a Hispanic background, I thought that for a Hispanic-Serving Institution, I could contribute to that community in a way that in other communities it would not be an asset to be a Hispanic, that it would be in this institution.
I think for me, the experience was that when I was at John Jay College of Criminal Justice, I had a lot of faculty member, maybe because I was kind of the seldom or rare Hispanic, so they really gave me extra care, and I had a lot of them giving me pointers on how to do things and how to kind of navigate this incredibly difficult and complicated system, being first generation student. And I was left with this feeling that I needed to pay back, right? That I needed to move that forward. So I have always sought to be in universities, and most definitely Mercy is a great example of it, where I can actually pay back. I can take students into the little areas, make comments to them in my class, and even if I'm taking a couple of minutes from class time, of how to proceed this way, how to do that, how not to give up, not to worry if they're the only ones that look different, because that was my experience. And I think when I do that, I help them, but I kind of also help myself because it keeps me grounded. And I just love it.
I think you're describing something I was hoping we could talk about, which is validating our students' identities, and maybe in the little things or in the big things that we do. We know from the research on how to be a better Hispanic serving institution that validating identity is really important. How does that take place in your classrooms, and how do you wish we could amplify that?
I literally just finished the finishing touches for a Caribbean history syllabus, and it was really difficult. Not because it was difficult because I had too much going on in my head insofar as what to include and what to exclude. That is excruciating when you want to represent something that is so broad to what I anticipate is going to be a pretty broad audience, a group of students who might want to know, well, most definitely would like to know about the Dominican Republic and perhaps Puerto Rico, but then I want a week of Haiti, I want Haiti scattered throughout. I want discussions on the French and the Dutch just to enrich it. There's too much. But the whole idea, and also of course talking about the diaspora, talking about culture and music and dance, it's impossible to do all of this any justice in a given semester. But at the same time, as I piece together each week by week, I'm thinking about the kinds of conversations that I envision having with the students. It's pretty magnificent, actually, to be able to do that every semester when I'm teaching a different course that's somewhat related about the region. And it's difficult. But it's also about carrying on these conversations in my head about what I would like for them to learn, but also what I would hope they would share. And of course, a lot of this we can't really control or even predict. And so there's that other element, is that, be open to whatever it is that they bring, because they will definitely bring something, and that, you have to be open to the unexpected.
I suppose that part of what we do as in the harder sciences, right? Juan and I teach in the biology department, and a lot of what we probably aspire to do, and we probably do to a certain degree, albeit imperfectly, is to actually represent the fact that there are people with our background doing science, and that we are an important a group that has contributed a whole lot to the development of scientific knowledge, and in not only in biology, but across the different areas of disciplines. And from that perspective, I suppose that the representation of being there, and also this varies from person to person, from class to class, and from student to student as well. Trying to make sure that the students see that they can communicate on a slightly different wavelength. We don't have to be this sort of always so vertical relationship, precisely because there's at least a thread of commonality. There's a thread of community that comes from the fact of just being who we are, and them being who they are.
Well, I think that the role model is really a key, and not only for the Hispanic, but we have many minorities here at Mercy, so I never want to single out one minority, but I'm clearly a minority. There is no question that the way I speak. So and I think that in a way it could be a disadvantage, and in a way it's an advantage, because they see in someone who has in a way something that is different, that it's not the standard, that is not what you always face in this type of position, so that makes them project to that position more easily, or feel more comfortable, or feel free to say things that otherwise they wouldn't, and just will be much more relaxing. So as Patricio said, what we teach is we cannot introduce those in the curriculum, because we teach about facts, and that they don't have a cultural perspective, but we can introduce that in the way that we communicate and we interact with the student, and how we present ourselves to the student.
What should a Hispanic-Serving Institution's Gen Ed curriculum contain? And I ask because we're in progress of revising that curriculum and dreaming new things for it. So what would your advice be to that team that's working on it?
I think that's a really big question, and probably what I would like to see is, in particular, because we are serving a lot of students that come from disadvantaged communities. Perhaps they didn't go to the best schools. So I think that if our Gen Ed would serve to expose them more to what they have not already been exposed to, while at the same time preparing them for what they're seeking to do in their major. And I know that's a lot to ask from a core curriculum, right? But I think that would be the ideal, to teach the students to do the reading, the writing at the high level, the critical thinking, so that when they move into their majors, they can take those basic skills and just really fly with it, right? I always tell my students when I speak to them, I make them write a lot. And that's, they don't always like me for that, but that's okay. I think maybe one day when they're older and wiser, maybe they'll think of me and smile. But I tell them, I am expecting that you're not going to go into some entry-level position and be there for the next 50 years. You're going to be the next professors. You're going to be the next professionals, supervisors, commissioners, heads of agencies, and you have to do good writing, you have to do good thinking, you need to understand people. And these are the things that I want you to take from this class. And because I have perhaps such high expectations of them, I am so happy to say 99.9 raise to the occasion and leave me way behind in total awe. They start really badly with writing, and at the end of the semester, with feedback, they've put in the work, they do the work, and I love that. But I think they could be better prepared if they had already had more practice on writing, public speaking at the gen ed level, and not only by the time they're taking a senior class in criminal justice with me, again talking about criminal justice students.
I think adding to that, oftentimes we don't see that in math. We don't see the writing, we don't see the reading, and it's so important. Our students usually think, and a lot of how math is taught is just, here's problems, let's just solve problems. But writing and reading mathematics is a different skill than reading other subjects, but it's equally as important. And I think incorporating that into our math classes and making sure our students understand how to read mathematics and how to write mathematics, because it's not just formulas, right? I think that would be really impactful for them.
So we need to put some attention on writing across the curriculum, perhaps.
Yes.
How do we stimulate our students to see the intersectionality in what they are studying? So how can we help them sort of break the walls between disciplines, and so that they can understand that everything has a context? And I think that for them to develop the ability to see and understand that context will be a better foundation for their critical thinking, for their analysis, and for those higher level skills that we want them to develop in the curriculum of their programs.
I love that idea, actually, and there's probably a lot of ways that we could think of the upper level in the curriculum as a place for multidisciplinarity. I also have this ambitious idea. I mean, the reason I got interested in bilinguals when I was very young was because I thought that bilinguals had better brain power because you straddle two languages, and so you're more comfortable with things like ambiguity and complexity. So maybe we can use that, in an HSI we have multiple worlds, kind of living in concord. How do we use that to introduce interdisciplinarity to our students, right?
But I think Patricio's comment about them understanding what it is that we are asking of them is so essential, because I get the feeling that a lot of my students just think that they're going from one class to another because they have to. Somebody made this decision and they have nothing to do with this decision, and they're just going along with it. And that level of disconnect, I don't think that really allows them to be able to think at a grander level about any idea that you're giving them in your particular class, right? Because they see everything very siloed versus, oh, this is just adding to what I learned in Patricio's class, or in Juan's class, Andres, and Rosaura. Oh, I've heard this already. This is how it applies within this context. I see a lot of that is really missing. And I really think it's on us as a college to make those links for them, in particular because so many of our students are first generation.
Do you think, some people have offered career education, career preparation, and experiential learning as an answer to that question. Do you think that has legs? So the idea of focusing more on preparing students for professional contexts and introducing internships and other such things early on.
I think that is fundamental. It should be an essential part of the program, because it's really where you see that that transforms an individual from one thing to another. Just hands-on experiences, gives them confidence, gives them the ability to actually think about what they are doing, and they feel like they can do it. And just from the simple thing of doing something in the lab to a complex thing of going to an internship, like a summer program. So the way that you see the students coming in and out of that is just like they were two different persons. So the way that they acquire self-confidence, the knowledge that they acquire, and they really feel like they are prepared to move forward. So for me, coming back to your point, the development and the integration of internships, summer programs, and so forth, it's really a big asset for the development of primarily for minority students.
And you know, these opportunities also help us integrate with the community,
Exactly.
which was another topic that I was hoping we could touch on a little bit. As an HSI in a community that, in fact, actually has probably a higher percentage of Latinos living in the communities right around us. What is our role, and how do you see your work here as related to serving as an institution anchored in a community?
I think we're really well positioned to help students outside of the university as well. So I'm part in the summers of a program called Mathematical Modeling at Mercy, aimed at high school students, that really prepares them mathematically, but also, to be able to know how to give presentations and work together and think critically about problems, and they do a little bit of research at the end. And I think we are really well positioned to do things like that for the community, for the students, get to know the parents, form these relationships that will, whether the students come to Mercy or not, right, will help them in the long run in their careers.
I think it's very important to consider the fact that we have the ability, because of our position, not only as an HSI, but because we are an institution of higher education that focuses on, we have a reputation of, helping with, upward mobility and to help our students succeed in the way that student success, throughout the lifetime, right? So it's not about the students getting an A. It's providing tools and skills and the capacity to be out there and lift those around you as well. And from that perspective, I think we have a responsibility as an institution to continue breaking down the walls that basically, that make our students, and perhaps us as an institution as well, victims of stereotype, right? So we want to be proud of being an HSI in the whole breadth of what that entails, but we have to understand that by doing that work, we are telling everybody around us, these are the things that our students can do. This is how we have helped them, and this is how we help everybody as well. Because, it's that story of, when you lift the people around you, you don't have to sink someone to lift someone else up, and that's our mission as an institution, right? And that's something that we should be proud of. We want our students to feel proud of being Mercy graduates. We don't want this to be, it's a line on their CV. We want them to have an identity, because what we did for them is helping them helping others. And that's a noble idea that I think we should probably anchor our practice on.
I think that the location where we are geographically really helps us, or could help us, integrate very well with a number of institutions that are around us. And this is something that I think that Mercy has not exploited very much particularly in our area. So in the last couple of years, I think that the perception of minorities and institutions that have minorities has changed dramatically in the country. So now there are a number of institutions that didn't pay much attention in the past, and they see what we have as a real asset. And I think that we could exploit that in a way that we could insert much better by creating bridges and relationships with these other institutions, developing probably shared programs, or looking those initiatives, and I think that will help the students that we actually attract and attend our classes to actually get access to another level of professions that they were not they were not even thinking about. I mean, they thought that they was out of their reach, and well, you can see that it could be under your reach if you have those bridges that they can go through.
I have students do presentations in the senior class for criminal justice, and they talk about what they do in real life, and I am just astounded. They work for EMS. They're working as rape counselors. They're doing so much important work in the community, and I'm wondering, is anybody capturing this? And I myself, I write it down, and then it just goes down, in a filing cabinet at the end of the semester, when something could be done, right? We could be tapping in what these students are already doing, not only to provide opportunities perhaps for further students, but also perhaps so that they go to those jobs with a Mercy identification. I don't mean a tag. I mean a sense of pride that they can say, oh, I'm at Mercy College and I'm an EMS also, so that people know that we're out there in the community already, right, doing a lot of things, and I think that's all getting lost.
Sometimes it feels like the structures of power at Mercy are too vertical, and providing opportunities for the horizontal transfer and for creating community in shared governance, in again, faculty support, interdisciplinarity. When the institution opens itself to that type of structural reorganization, things happen. Otherwise, it's a little bit like having a plant in a pot that you haven't really shaken the soil for too long. The soil gets like tight and dry, and what you want is to shuffle it a little bit. I think that providing opportunities for a community to create and self-regulate to a certain extent, within the limitations of who we are and how big we are and how far we can go with that, I think it would be a great point to start, because that's how we are going to develop collaborations that go, for instance, beyond what Juan and I do in the biology department. We could collaborate with people in counseling and in liberal arts and in other disciplines, and that could be an ambitious plan because otherwise, and this is the last thing that I want to say about this, when you keep these vertical structures of power, what you're doing is upholding the things that keep our minorities minoritized. And if the institution doesn't show the commitment to break with that, it's difficult to model us. It stifles the efforts.
Collaboration when it comes to initiatives is so important, right? Because I think we can impact the most number of students when we're collaborating, and they're going to be so much more impactful when we have different viewpoints depending on where you come from, right? What your field of study is. We come at things in different ways, and I think trying to collaborate more.
We know that the bachelor's degree is one of the greatest ways for people to move ahead in life and to just get great jobs. But it turns out that for women and people of color, that bachelor's degree is not as good a credential. Do you think that, what could we do as an institution that serves predominantly minority people and predominantly women? We're 72% women. What can we do to break that trend? Maybe it goes back to some of your ideas before about experiential education in the curriculum.
Yeah, I think that they're trying to insert them as soon as possible or as early as possible into inserting them with other institutions that they can offer. We don't offer work to them, so institutions that could be potential places where they could work. I think that establishing those relationships will be. We know that has a very important impact.
Yeah.
Maybe they get hired, or at least, even if they don't get hired, at least they feel comfortable. They feel comfortable interacting with those people. They go to work with scientists, with doctors, whoever. They know what is the language. They know how you behave with it. They know what they expect from you. So you know how to present yourself and so forth. So I think that that could have an important impact in the insertion.
More work-based learning, yes.
What if we could establish partnerships, like real partnerships
Yes.
with prospective employers and members of the community, and design pilot programs that would articulate a curricular sequence that would, within the context of the bachelor degree that they're getting, they are going to, it's kind of a pipeline that specific skills, courses that are rethought and redesigned and reimagined to provide those skills and without forgetting that there is a general education core, that there is reading, writing, and critical thinking, which are fundamental and instrumental to everything else. But if we could implement that kind of, program-long pipeline where the students begin to learn the basics of what a craft or what a skill is, and they build on it so that by the end of their program, they, again, I guess this sort of feeds into this smaller certificate idea that the college is sort of building, but integrating that into a curriculum that will be, perhaps it needs to be targeted in the beginning for minorities, for women, for the groups that need the boost. And if that generates data, what better contribution to society at large than doing something like that?
I'd love to hear you say that, because many institutions or many academic circles are not so eager to experiment in that way. But I think that's exactly where we should be going, and maybe those are the places where we can break down those vertical hierarchies and really get to work on serving our students even better.
Mm-hmm. I was just thinking along those lines, because there are other initiatives, partnerships, that involve like summer institutes for research.
Yes.
For those students who are interested in that kind of thing, and that runs the gamut from, STEM related disciplines to humanities and social sciences, right? So I mean, I was a part of two of them actually, like years ago in the 90s, and I wrote research and I presented it to an audience at the end of the like the 4-week or what have you, and it was great. And it set me along a path where, all right, so I like this kind of work. I'm good at it. I'm going to apply to graduate school to do this permanently, and so that set me into that kind of thing. And I think, we have some of those things going on within the School of Liberal Arts, but there's nothing wrong with expanding.
Even reinventing sometimes the way that we teach our classes. I've had great experiences in teaching courses in which part of the goal is to give the students ownership of what they're learning, and you can do that in a number of ways. One of the things that I've done is to have the students themselves teach the class to everybody else, and while it's uncomfortable and it's difficult and it's challenging at first, they get better and they get better and they get better, and they understand that they can master these things. And we are the experts in at the front of the classroom, which means that we get to be facilitators rather than lecturers in that context, and that's a powerful experience that could also be articulated in the way that we practice what we do to model what we want to get out of the students.
In the search committees, I think that we should have a more prominent, not prominent, but have a role. So we have no role. So I thought that that will be something that could help. We have all these instruction. I don't know, I have been in many search committees here. Some of them are good, in the sense that they are fair to the candidates, and others that they have not been, for me, I took a lot of effort to try to make that fair to the candidate. So I see a lot of I have been exposed to a lot of circumstances that I don't say that they violated any rule, but from my perspective, they were not being fair to those candidates. So I think that we should be more not only reading a set of policies, that they are explained to you what you can do, what you cannot do, what you can ask or not ask, but more. I think that everybody does it spontaneously. Because of our background, but really to make sure that there are no things that are coming because of the way that the candidate is presenting him or herself or expressing that those are handicaps instead of being, just neutral or an advantage. So, and those things really happen in those search committees, and I think that they happen because of the lack of sufficient people that has a diverse background to really appreciate why someone is speaking in one way or expressing the same or presenting themselves in one way or the other, and they don't follow a stereotype of how a faculty should look like. So I think that this is something that I believe will be beneficial to increase the diversity of the population of faculty that we have.
There are perhaps too many things to say about this, in part because it goes a lot of the things that Juan presented just now were true for many decades, from my understanding, having not been here for many decades. But I've been on several search committees that, I've been on too few search committees where I felt the outcome was good, and in part there are a lot of structural reasons for that, being, one being the manner in which and where we place ads. That's just to start with that, and then the structure of the committees and what they or how they're charged is HR runs down a list of things that we can and cannot ask, and that's it, and that's our diversity training. That's not it. That's not even scratching the surface. In other places, you have a representative there from HR who oversees and actually looks at the candidate pool, and if they determine by however they determine it that this is insufficient, then that it has to be expanded somehow. It has to it doesn't go forward. Or if there's a pool of finalists that are brought in, and it just so happens that 5 of the 6 are men and they're all white, it's like that gets scrapped. But no, these kinds of things move forward and eventually perpetuate the kinds of things that we see up until fairly recently. And I've been on those committees, and I've heard some people say some weird things on committees. There's all kinds of things. It runs the gamut from this to that, and some serious considerations need to be made from the upper administration to HR and then across all of the schools and down to how the committees are put together and when the ads are placed and where the ads are placed and how how do we determine a satisfactory, if there is such a thing, candidate pool. But we cannot afford to shoot ourselves in the foot by placing ads in January when we should be placing them in August.
Correct.
So that we could have at least a shot at candidates who might consider us, to say nothing of comparing salary to course course load and this or that place. There's some things that can't be helped, but there are other things that can be, and those that can be, we need to really seriously address.
I have to say that all of the things that you've mentioned are very much within our control, and we have agency over. And I say we, meaning the provost office, can take these on. And these are, the research-proven methods as far as, increasing the pool of applicants for jobs and making sure that the best candidate has a chance.
Also, what is in the ads. I knew Mercy was a Hispanic-Serving Institution, but I had no idea of how many students of color it really had until I got here and taught. And my classroom, my first semester was 90% students of color. And I wish I would have seen that in the ad. I ended up coming here anyway, but I think that would have made it such an easier decision for me. And so being able to explain who we are as a school, what we care about, and what our students look like.
I think that one thing that is important in order to get all of that sort of moving in that direction is having leadership with that vision. Is to find leadership and among the faculty or in the pool of candidates that align with that particular vision. Because again, this is still a big ship, and we're all on it, and we go in the direction that the captain ultimately steers the ship. But having representation not only in the faculty ranks but also in the administration is fundamental. Having people with Andres' vision at the top of the school liberal arts, is important. It's fundamental. Having someone like you in the office of the provost is fundamental. Having someone sort of at least replicate, not necessarily take over like all of the schools, but having an increase. I'm covering my bases here, but having diversity represented at the top of the schools is super important because we have different things to say, because we sometimes challenge the status quo, not by simply dressing in a particular way, but also because we have different backgrounds. Juan and I have the experience of being immigrants in this country, and that gives you a different perspective that should be welcome.
I point to the assets that we have. So the thing that we are strong in general in my particular discipline. So the access to certain type of offices, for example, for our work, our office for sponsored projects has always been outstanding since the day I came here. So these are important assets for our that you don't see in institutions. Usually in institutions, or you may or may not, but it's not that common that they have that you obtain that much support. So for me, other than the good things of the community that were already mentioned, is to point to those kind of assets. I would like to have more assets. This is where, looking at the future, that I can point, that I could point to whenever I try to convince something to come here.
And break the barriers to access those assets, which is a little bit in line with what I was saying before about the verticality of things, that sometimes getting to understanding what are the things that we have available and how to get to them, because they are precious resources, very helpful, and it shouldn't take 2-3 years of being part of the community to figure out how to do something.
I just want to thank all of you for your incredible insights. I hope that we get to talk a lot more, but more importantly, I hope that we get to do a lot more along the lines of what you're suggesting, because I think these are all really grounded, many very, very doable ideas. And I also want to thank you for continuing to be such incredible role models for our students, for people in the community, and for each other. And for me as a new member of Mercy, I'm inspired by all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you
inviting
so much.
us.
Thank you
Thanks for the
inviting.
opportunity.
For doing this.